The top guy on my board was Jalen Hurts. And the way I look at it is when
I don't know where I'm going to go
because the way I look at it is you get AJ back,
yes.
you get Devontae back, you get Lane back. Yes, that is going to certainly help Jalen Hurts' chances. And then you get into the turnover stuff. And, whether you just say that turnovers happen in bunches and it's going to regress back to the mean, whatever it is. I think when you look at it, you would anticipate that Jalen is not going to continue on this pace that he's been in terms of turning the football over. You can look at Bo's favorite stat, the turnover-worthy play rate from Pro Football Focus. And we'll look at that's just the number we have, right? That is what it is. But so far right now, he's the worst in the NFL, 6.8% at the quarterback position in terms of turnover-worthy play rate.
I had him at 6.4.
Well, he would still be worse with that.
Oh, that's not true, actually.
In 2023, he was 24th in that metric at 2.3%. 2022, he was even lower on that metric at just 1.9%. So he's never been at the rate that he's at right now. And in fact, it's like the complete opposite end of the spectrum. And so you would say just naturally he's going to regress. But even then, I think still looking back, he's going to get back closer to what we've seen from Jalen Hurts. You get all the talent back on the field. I think it should be better.
Now, it is not just the turnovers.
Sure.
All of his numbers are the worst they have ever been in his 4 years as a starter. EPA per dropback, worst. Net yards per pass attempt, worst. Sack rate, worst. Time to throw, longest. Success rate, worst. Even as a runner, first downs per rush and third down conversions per or when he runs on third down, does he get a first down? All of those are the worst. Some of them pretty significantly. The sack rate, especially.
Yep.
And so, I mean, I would imagine that means some of those things are gonna bounce back, and obviously he gets AJ Brown back. One of the things that I think is curious, and I wonder what you think about it, Fran. Two things. One is, remember the description from Tim McManus's article about the Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni dynamic being that Jalen Hurts is the one who wanted to throw the ball over the middle of the field more. He's in a new offense. He's throwing it over the middle of the field, even less often than he did last year. Worse in the league again. And you look at where he is throwing the ball downfield. The only place where it's significantly different, all of his passes, not all of them, but the majority of his passes relative to years prior, like the 0 yards to 5 yards down the field. That's where the biggest bucket is coming from versus the rest of the league. That's the place where he is more than he was in past years.
Yep.
Why? Is it just AJ Brown?
Well, and that's what I almost want to see, the middle of the field numbers and what they looked like in week one versus the rest of the slate, and just see if that was affected so largely by not having AJ on the field. I had heard that stat last week about the middle of the field numbers being lower. I think it might have been with Shield, and I think that's really interesting to me. It hadn't even occurred to me that they would be worse than they were a year ago because they were so low.
So one of us is going to draft Bryce Huff, and then that he can't be worse.
Yeah, I do have some interesting numbers on Bryce Huff. We'll get to that in a little bit, but. No, I do think that, look, we're still, and that's the weird part about having the early bye, is that for this team, because we've seen like some really high moments and then we've seen some really bad moments from this offense and from this defense, it's such a small sample still, especially when you factor in like Brazil week one, like was kind of a weird game. And then you had what was essentially like a blowout where you were starting the game at down 21-0 in Tampa. That's going to throw some of these numbers off from the way that they wanted to approach things from an offensive standpoint. I think it's a weird time to try and project moving forward. If this was a week 8 bye, you have such a big sample. Still with only a 4-game sample, it's going to be interesting to try and project this team forward.
So go ahead.
Yeah. So shout out to Ruben Frank for this number here, but I found this to be staggering and correctable, which is that Jalen Hurts is 25% of the red zone turnovers in the NFL this year among quarterbacks. Wow. That there are 12 overall. Jalen has 3 of them. No other quarterback has more than 1. 9 overall among every other quarterback in the league. And so, look, red zone turnovers.
That's a little noisy.
That's very noisy. Yeah.
It takes points off the board, right? And so if you simply cut down on red zone turnovers, that has a material effect on the scoring in games.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, so beyond that, just over the course of a game, league-wide, 16th in EPA per dropback, 14th in success rate, 22nd in net yards per pass attempt. I mean, that seems like what he's playing like, if not even a little bit worse.
Yeah,
I expect that he will
should be
play
better.
better.
He should be better than that, and that's kind of the way I looked at it. And that's why the first point is AJ healthy, Devontae healthy, Lane Johnson healthy. That should result in Jalen Hurts. Like those bottom line numbers should all improve with the talent at his disposal.
Okay.
We all silly like the mayor.